Using this article here on my website, I'm going to go over the maintenance aspect of a home and kind of things to know, probably geared more towards rentals, but we'll just go section by section on things to look out for and kind of just an overall understanding of each aspect of a house. So starting with the foundation here, of course, most of this you can't even see once the house is fully built. So as far as maintenance goes, you're looking for issues where there's cracks. Cracks in the block foundation that goes around the perimeter of the home, cracks in the walls inside the house. It would have to be pretty serious cracks, more than a quarter inch probably for it to be foundation related, and it's very slow and gradual. So if a crack gets bigger over the course of 18 months, the foundation of the home is shifting and causing movement. And water is a big deal for foundations. So if there's ever a maintenance request or kind of any issue with maintenance that has to do with water outside the house coming inside or not getting away from the house, it's got to go downhill and away from the house. That's a big thing, getting water away from the foundation. So the frame is what holds the whole house up, of course, but with that, it holds everything in it. So frame is very involved. So water issues will tend to rot this frame and destroy the wood over time. So if a water heater leaks for a week, it's probably okay. The wood will dry out and keep its consistency and strength. But if a water heater leaks for 6 months, probably everything underneath it is compromised. And so then all the finished flooring, the tile, whatever needs to be ripped out. The floor need the joists, kind of these long, this is a joist right here. This, whatever's under the water heater, will need to be ripped out and probably rebuilt. Another common area for frame issues is around windows. When water gets in behind the siding, it'll rot out the frame. So that's kind of like wood frame type maintenance. The roof is, of course, on top of the house. Pretty much every house that is in residential will be what's called asphalt. The roof's main job really is just to shed water off the top of the house, directed into the gutters and away from the foundation. I got a search here. This is what an old roof looks like. You see how these shingles are wobbly and just kind of they're curling up. If they're in good shape, they look like this, nice and crispy and shaped, and they've got all those little tiny white dots are called shingle rocks, and that kind of protects them. So that's what a nice fresh roof looks like. Any issue with the roof that's going to come through on home maintenance is going to be pretty much it leaking. So you'll notice some wetness, like a discoloring in the ceiling drywall. Instead of being white, it'll start to turn like a little bit brown, and it'll just get wetter and wetter. Usually the first places in a roof to leak, other than obvious damage, is at places where there's flashing. So you see this joint right here, that's flashed in. Also around chimneys and boots. Sometimes pipes stick through the roof and have a boot around them, and that will be a common place for maybe the caulking or whatever to shrink and dry up, and then water starts getting in. So that's a lot of these are kind of slow trickle leaks, but you'll notice them gradually, and so that needs to be fixed before you bother fixing whatever damage was caused. Alright, so we're going to part 2 here. Generally, the only maintenance with windows is if they crack or break. Sometimes they don't open, and that's generally just because they're old and they're just not going to open, and that's that. The other thing, though, is if they're not flashed properly or the siding outside around them, kind of out here around the outside, it can start rotting the wood on the inside that's around the window. And that will become evident eventually when the floor gets spongy on the inside of the house next to this window, or maybe the floor down below this window if it's a 2-story house. That'll start to show some discoloration in the ceiling drywall. Doors, a little more involved. Exterior doors, they always get this rot at the bottom of the jamb next to the threshold. It's very unfortunate, and you can only stop it if you have sort of an outcropping over the door to block rain, but it just seems like so many houses will get this rot here. Other than that, doors are pretty straightforward. I will say one thing that happens a ton in any houses, and this can happen from humidity or the shifting, like the foundation's shifting a little bit. See how that latch right there isn't going into the center of this. Let's make this bigger photo. So when this door is pushed closed, that latch right there isn't going to go into the hole, so it's not going to hold the door closed. So then this thing on the right is called the strike. So that's going to have to be unscrewed and re-drilled and lowered just a little so that this latch goes into it. So that happens a lot. Also, sometimes the doors have to be shaved down stuff. That's doors. I can already see this is getting more and more complicated, so we're going to cut it off there before we get into more of the mechanical components and the finishes.